and this is all about the judiciary. Is it the capture of the judiciary? We can see there, of course, it says Judiciary Revisited, and we had, we have Arab Singh there, personified, of course, as the Deputy President, and Antoinette there with the royal scepter and the crown, and you can see also the insignia there is the Supreme President, Office of the Courts of Kenya, right? In light of this, maybe it would be a good thing also to pick up from Dr. Atenda Molo. What do you think about this particular editorial cartoon today?
Well, it's an interesting one. There's some considerable truth in what it reflects, but not in its entirety. I think where it is not true is the suggestion, as probably depicted, that the executive has now fully captured the courts. I think I can say with a lot of confidence that the judiciary remains just about the only arm or institution of the state that has resisted capture by the executive and remains considerably independent. And that is reflected in a number of decisions. I think what has happened are two things. One is that there's a clear and concerted effort to control the judiciary. That effort is reflected in the fact of President Uhuru Kenyatta purporting to nominate 3 people to represent the public, not 2. He's only allowed 2 by the Constitution. But he even went ahead and nominated on behalf of the Public Service Commission. It is reflected in the kind of persons he nominated, persons who do not necessarily represent the public view, but represent the section of the, basically the Jubilee administration thinking. It is also reflected, secondly, in the attempt lately, and this is still pending in Parliament, of purporting to refer the nominee elected by the judiciary, in this case Justice Wasame, for parliamentary vetting. When the law is clear, the law allows each of the levels of the judiciary, the magistracy, the High Court, the Court of Appeal, and the Supreme Court, to each elect 1 person to sit in the Judicial Service Commission. It allows the Law Society to elect 2 people. Those persons, once elected, are not supposed to be subjected to parliamentary approval. So there's that effort. The second effort is the effort to undermine judicial decisions. And the fact that there's an effort to undermine judicial decisions actually demonstrates the fact that they've been unable to capture. If they were able to capture the judiciary completely, then they wouldn't need to worry about undermining those judicial decisions. So I think that cartoon, while partly it reflects the intention, it does not reflect the reality as it is. It reflects the attempt.
The attempt.
Yes.
All right, let's hear from Dr. Esali. Looking at the cartoon, if we just have the cartoon back, please.
It's expected any administration that would come on in Kenya would want to have a say in the judiciary and the goings-on in the judiciary. So the attempt to let's say, pack pro-Jubilee people in the Judicial Service Commission, it is also expected, but not so blatantly the way it has been done. You find that same thing happening in the USA, for example. If the Democrats are in power, they try to put friendly people in the judiciary, especially in the Supreme Court and so on. But all said and done, I think the judiciary's independence has been demonstrated severally, and mine is to encourage the judiciary that they should continue to maintain that independence and safeguard it as much as they can, because you realize that the way the legislature is set up now, it might not be as effective as a countermeasure to Jubilee's excesses, and maybe the judiciary might be the last bastion that can help Kenyans to get fairness. So it's important that they maintain their independence. So mine is just to encourage the members of the judiciary to guard their independence with all their might, so that they don't get interfered with. As for nominations to the Judicial Service Commission, I think it's important that the executive, as they try to nominate people, they should not cross the line and purport to be nominating people they should not nominate.
All right, Senator Mutahi Kagwe, you think also this is the Jubilee administration has not made made good about his promise to, of course, revisit the judiciary?
First and foremost, there was never any attempt, or there was never any, it is not in anybody's interest, never, and it has not been in anybody's interest to interfere with the judiciary. Because, you know, don't forget that governments are there for a time. Institutions stay forever and ever. And the point is that if you go and interfere with the judiciary, to the extent that it had been in the past, particularly in the first two governments, then what it means is that at one time, the same judiciary is going to hurt you. And you want to have an institution where, whether you are in power or out of power, there is an institution that you can rely on for justice, and that is the judiciary. Having said that, I think it is also important for the judiciary itself to act and behave in a manner that expresses their own independence and justice, so that justice and independence does not necessarily mean a left-leaning judiciary is necessarily the one that is providing justice. I think that independence means just that. It is neither the left nor the right. They are right in the center there, and they will make rulings in accordance with the law. And I think that is important. Kenyans have lately, and for some time now, you know, questioned even some of the rulings that have been made within the judiciary. I'm not talking about the big rulings as in the one that said that the elections have to be repeated and so on. I'm talking about normal, average Kenyans who go to a magistrate and listen to a ruling being made about their land deal or about this or about small things that pertain to their own livelihoods. Now, there are questions sometimes that are asked about it. And I think that it is also wrong if we were to assume and imagine that the ills that affect the rest of the executive or the legislature for that matter are absent in the judiciary. For example, you cannot, within the bounds of imagination, tell me that there is no corruption in the judiciary. There is corruption in the judiciary, and everybody knows that. So when we talk about independence of an institution, I think it is good to put it in context and to say that we admire the judiciary. I admire the judiciary personally. I have confidence in the judiciary. And I think that it is a concept, it is work in progress. Independence, fight against corruption in the judiciary, it's work in progress, and it will always be.
All right. Let's hear from Jacobi. Of course, you also petition was in the courts. Do you think they ruled favorably?
No, actually, it's a very bad ruling. Let me just tell you. When last time I was here, I said, because I'm in court, I will not talk. Very bad ruling. Looked very influenced. Not even good to listen to. But I accepted. I want to agree with Senator Kagwe that it is work in progress. I think it shall all be well. I think we just need to encourage the judiciary not to be intimidated by the executive, meaning they need to make more changes. I think we need to deal with some urgent issues. For example, when we were here, when I was here last, it was the day after Honorable Tuma lost his case. How does the judge figure out to fine you 12 million? For example, now it looks like people will fear going to court, because when you go to court, you will lose and you will pay. I think that, and I had encouraged Utiende and Senator Wamatangi that they need to put something in law to encourage Kenyans to go to court, not to go to court and leave crying. You know, it's already bad enough if you lose a court case. But to be told, pay 12 million, something is outrageously wrong. So I think as we look at this, we need to kind of like sound the CJ, that sentencing rules, like Senator Kagwe says, there is corruption. We all know that in the judiciary, but encourage them to keep improving. And just back to what I think we were talking about, Debarl, remember after 2010, when we were campaigning for the new constitution in 2010, we were told by Kibaki and Raila that 20% is bad. And that is precisely where the problem is. These unnecessary and excessive powers of the executive should be part of these reforms we are talking about. I want to agree with Senator Wamatangi that it is not time to talk or run back to our tribal cocoons. And I can also assure you and our viewers that there will be no 2022 if we don't sort out 2017. 2017 must be sorted out so that as we go to 2022, the judiciary is okay, IEBC is fine, the police is reformed, we are talking jobs. Because we just have to, even now our economy is losing so many jobs. Last week I saw Kenya Commercial Bank laying off nearly 800 people. Imagine extrapolated in terms of family members. And this economy cannot. Last year we were talking, the year before the economy lost 130,000 jobs in the formal sector. And these politicians are not talking about it. We are talking about simple things.
Right.
I think we need to talk bigger.
Okay, talk bigger. Let's just close on, of course, with the judiciary, with the cartoon as well, as we move on to other issues as well. Very briefly.
Yes, this whole issue of one, judicial independence, two, judicial activism, and the place and role of the judiciary in a government and in one government. And if you take just a minute, ride with me on this thought. Imagine in your mind that the executive goes for an election after serving a cycle. And at the same time, the legislature, which is the other arm of government, goes for the same election. And once the outcome of that election has been pronounced by the relevant institutions, it is not only legitimized, but it is also accepted and crowned by the judiciary. Saying, and remember, when a political party and those other formations are running for that office, they run for that office with various promises or manifestos, so we would say. And so if they win public support at the time of winning that election, then by inference, symbolically, when it is the Chief Justice to come and say, yes, we accept and we assign you then to take this role, then what role should that judiciary in its independence play? And my mind says that that it is completely off cue to think that that judiciary, in exercise of its independence, should always and at all the time act contra or anti what the government. In fact, it is premised in my thinking that line must remain very thin, because what does it mean, Debarl, if you go to an election and I'm told you're the one to accept that this man has won the election, so he's the president and these are the members of the legislature, and so they have to run government for the next 5 years, but you are the judiciary and you've been here for long watching on these values. So if you allocated to yourself that your work then in exercise and show of independence is always to contradict or work in opposite of what I have campaigned on, then you'll be overreaching. And so that's why I think that this whole debate about have we seen or witnessed, or is there intended judicial capture? I think that is a debate that must have a very expanded latitude. And of course, bearing in mind that there are times when the judiciary itself makes decisions and say that we are making these decisions in public interest. I mean, it's not only once. When you've seen a matter coming to court and the judiciary has got to act and make a decision and pronounces as such. So I think, in my view, it's a debate that's delicate and wide, but however, the judiciary must still remain true to its course and values. We wind up on it very briefly.
Just one thing.
Very briefly.
It cannot escape this debate that the president got angry and abused the judiciary, including the CJ, that the leader of majority told the judiciary, we shall deal with you. That is where this whole scare is coming from. And I think it is only fair and intellectual enough to mention that, because I think that is where the president says, he abuses them. Then the next thing you see Duale saying, we shall deal with you. Then the next thing you see the president making appointments as though the judiciary is not independent. I think that is the crux of the matter. And that is what is scaring some of us.
Okay.
Even more worrying, just as we're winding up, I think it is to hear Senator Kimani Wamatangi speak on this. I mean, I've struggled to understand where he's coming from. But it's almost as if he's trying to tell us and tell viewers that because you have campaigned and you have been elected president and you've been elected, the judiciary must listen to you. And for me, that is the worry. That is the worry about the Jubilee administration. The idea that they think that there should be no institutions that are independent state institutions that survive elections. The thinking of the Constitution is that there are those who go for elections, members of parliament, the president, but there are certain institutions where people are appointed and they're to be non-partisan and they do not have to go or abide by that circle. And to that extent, I agree with Jacoyo Midio. And I think the worry is, and I agree with the Seli, that the judiciary must remain firm. We are starting to see some indications that they might be cracking at certain levels. Sometimes for individual reasons, and we must admit that there are also considerations of corruption sometimes. Sometimes because of perceptions of power, that perhaps we should make a decision this way because it will please the executive. And sometimes because of rampant complaints. We have seen some very strong judges now moved from Nairobi to what you would call the hinterland. And it is open to question whether it's on account of some of the fundamental decisions they've made. So we need to encourage the judiciary to remain as firm as it has been in later years.
Thank you. No, we're winding up on it. No.
Otiende has intentionally gotten me wrong. I mean, because he has said precisely the opposite of what I said. And I don't want to expand this debate. It is like the same argument we had when they were on the street and destroying people's property, pretending to be going to oust IEBC and claiming that they're exercising their rights. And we had this debate. You know, where do their rights end? Where does the law stop functioning when they're exercising their rights and the right, constitutional right for IEBC to be in office?
Okay. Why can't we dovetail this particular discussion?
So I was just making the simple point that you know, Otiende Amolo must understand that yes, it is important that the judiciary, of which he is one of the practitioners, is that it has to remain firm and true to its values, but it cannot and should not, actually as premised in our constitution and in law, be a stumbling block to progress of society.
Thank you.